It's now time to take a look at news stories making headlines around the globe. We begin here at home, specifically in Rivers State, as cracks are emerging within the rank of Rivers State lawmakers over the plan to impeach Governor Fubara and his deputy governor. Two members of the Rivers State House of Assembly are calling on the Speaker and other members to withdraw the impeachment process. At a media briefing in Port Harcourt, Sylvanus Nwanko, representing Omuma constituency, and Peter Abe, representing Digema constituency, say the call became necessary following several appeals from stakeholders within and outside the state, pleading with lawmakers to toe the path of peace. They enjoined their colleagues to have a rethink and consider adopting other measures to address the alleged constitutional infringements.
We have called this press conference to appeal to our fellow colleagues to tamper justice with mercy and to see how we can resolve this matter apart from the impeachment proceedings. We are begging, calling our colleagues to reconsider our step and see how this matter can be resolved amicably, even though the governor and the deputy governor has infringed on the Constitution. But we are appealing on them to reconsider our stand.
We, as people, as members of the 10th Assembly, we want to plead with our colleagues to please reconsider. This, we have received calls from leaders, from people in Rivers State, outside Rivers State, and we see that you don't raise the axe and swing it as you raise it. So we plead with our colleagues to reconcile.
Now, in other news, the leadership of the National Revenue Service, NRS, and top officials of KPMG Nigeria, a global professional services firm, yesterday held a high-level meeting to address concerns and disagreements arising from the implementation of Nigeria's new tax laws. The meeting, which took place in Abuja, came amid an intense debate within Nigeria's business and professional community over the implications of the new tax framework, which is among the most ambitious fiscal reforms in recent years. In a report titled Nigeria's New Tax Laws, Inherent Errors, Inconsistencies, Gaps and Omissions, KPMG Nigeria had expressed concerns over some aspects of the laws, including the taxation of shares, dividend treatment, non-resident obligations and foreign exchange deductions, and warned that these could affect businesses and taxpayers. However, this day newspaper learned that the executive chairman of the NRS, Dr. Zach Adedeji, used the meeting to clarify some grey areas in the new act, while the KPMG team noted that their earlier opinion on the new tax laws had been misconstrued and expressed regret over the misunderstanding. Now, finally, in politics, former governor of Sokoto State and senator representing Sokoto South, Aminu Tambuwal, has blamed Nigeria's worsening economic hardship and democratic decline on flawed policy choices, particularly the abrupt removal of fuel subsidy without a framework by the government of President Bola Tinubu. Tambuwal, who spoke during an interview on Arise Primetime, explained that the current administration's decision to remove fuel subsidy was carried out without adequate planning, stakeholder consultation or social buffers, arguing that Nigerians are paying the highest price for that policy today. He also stated that a compromised electoral process, which no longer truly reflects the will of voters, poses a significant challenge to the polity. The former governor used the opportunity to say that he will not run for the 2027 polls and says with the use of electronic voting, ADC will defeat President Tinubu. While Tambuwal also denied reaching a pact with Wike to be his running mate for supporting him at the 2019 elections and admitted that Nigerian political parties lacked ideology.
It's not completely decided by the electorates. I can say that and without mincing words. We know quite oftentimes that at coalition level, be it at the polling unit, at the ward level, at local government level, at the state level, or even at the national level, things happen that misrepresent what voters actually voted for. Politicians, yes, as I said in my earlier remarks, they try to find corners to cut. So wherever there's a loophole, politicians take advantage of that loophole. And INEC, from day one, in terms of the day of the election, be it failure of either beavers or failure of whatever technology, and then inability to transmit, even to start the election on time, and then transmit the results, count the results and transmit them. In between, you find INEC officials being compromised. I wholeheartedly support any reform that will improve the electoral process of Nigeria, including electronic transmission. Even if I, assuming I'm going to contest an election in 2027, will lose to that process,
Right.
I don't mind. I and Governor Yese Muke had not had any pact of he being my running mate, because it has been
Yes, it's been said that he wanted to be your vice presidential
not at all
candidate.
He never requested that. I must be fair to him. Intervention. First, the statements from President Trump and the subsequent missile attack had some effect on the government of the day. They now had to maybe sit down and say, look, what's happening? And then you could see that, yes, there is some positive impact of all of that on the way the administration is now thinking.
All right, well, those are some of our top stories for today. Tax back in the front burner, of course. As expected, we knew this would be a big conversation throughout the year. And River State and politics from Senator Tambuwal.
So let me go to Tambuwal first. It was his 60th and happy birthday and felicitations to him once again. But a couple of the things he said, that it is not the people's votes that really count in the Nigeria electoral system. Sadly, he's correct in that. But the question I'd like to ask politicians is the fact that have they not been beneficiaries of manipulation of elections? Which politician can come out to boldly say in this country as we speak today that they've not manipulated votes in their favor one way or the other? So if you say it today because you're in the opposition, when you are also where things are in favor of what you're doing, do you call out that evil at that same time? Secondly, what he said about the economy and the removal of subsidies is not far-fetched. I mean, we've made the argument here ad nauseum. The fact that the president then promised that when you remove subsidy, it is going to free money for the economy. But reverse is the case. In fact, when we're even paying subsidy, we're seeing money to run budgets to an extent where we had a better budget performance than what we had today. Look at what came to Federation account last year. Only about 10 trillion. That's why we are running multiple budget cycles concurrently. And guess what? Do you know in this budget, you were trying to say something about it yesterday, and let me expatiate. In this budget, they are told the MDAs not to add extra spending because you know that they had already stretched the 2025 budget into 2026 March. But the NDAs went to add extra 3.5 trillion. What we do not have money for. Look how we're hiving off assets. We're selling assets, hiving off assets just to be able to get money. Hive off assets over 108-something billion. But if we add that to it, 189 billion. If we add that to it, it's a far cry. So what it means invariably is that with that 3.5 trillion by the MDA, that demand will not be met. There's a higher possibility that even the 2026 budget will be carried into 2027. So where's the revenue? But you see, the argument this government kept on making then before they pull out subsidy is that, that 3-4 trillion that we're paying on subsidy, we'll just add it in. But it never added. What did it add? It added inflation, it added suffering, it added a lot of devaluation. And that's it. Until today, a lot of people cannot recover. So we have said that it was a policy somersault. Did they iterate the policy properly? They wouldn't listen. They will go ahead and do what it's just like this question of tax. So I'm happy. Yeah, KPMG has got to meet them and say they are raising the explanation. But a lot of people have raised the explanation as regards this tax issue. Take, for instance, I think it was one analyst that was talking yesterday that I heard that they were talking about the rent relief thing. You are giving rent relief of 500,000. In a place like Lagos, go to close to Songwater. Would you see a one bed for 500K. You'll be lucky to see it. Go to a place like Surulere, would you see a 1 or 2 bed for 500K? So a lot of people have been crying about these things happening as regards the tax, that, see, he doesn't feed into the problems. He can't even solve a lot of the problems and everything. But the government has said, okay, we're going to go ahead. President Tinubu has already said, oh, we're going to go ahead. The discrepancies is not enough. They've been able to hoodwink and bamboozle and shout at KPMG. KPMG definitely will go and try and repair relationship because, you know, they have a business to run. And we are all we are all looking at it and seeing it as an air of triumphalism for government, those that want to parrot narrative. They should continue. But it doesn't stop the problems on ground. And that's just it. We talked about these policy flows. You remember we had arguments about this policy flow. I said something where I was going to put us in a lot of problems. Election time removal too put us in a lot of problems. But the government said, oh, they want to save revenue. I mean, we've seen the end of it. It's not hardship. As regards the lawmakers, I mean, we all know that they was not going to sail through this Fubara impeachment thing. I'm sure those that did it just did it to be able to spite the system and shock the system. Because funny enough, some representative from the Rivers State government have even said that there's been no communication to the Rivers State governor as regards the impeachment. He's not received any of the notices and all of that. 2 lawmakers are already pulling out. Yeah, internal squabbles will go on. But like I keep saying, this does not solve the problem of what is going on in Rivers. The final solution to the problem in Rivers will be to take power away from one of the 2 power gladiators, and that is Wike or Fubara. If you do not do that, you will have a lot of peace deal. I hear Pandef has gotten into it now. They will talk, they will bring them together. The next day, they will still go in the bag, abuse themselves, call each other names and all of that, and it continues. Except President Tinubu makes that decision. Except if President Tinubu wants to play a game in such a way that he will use 2 of them for the election, get his election and say, go and exploit yourselves. So it's a big problem.
Okay, on Rivers, I've continuously, repeatedly, severally insisted that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu must get involved. And it is not a wrong thing that we have raised to risk that the president has already summoned the main gladiators in the matter. Governor Fubara and Godfather Wike to see how the problem can be solved. I argued that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu cannot afford a wide Port Harcourt or a wide Rivers State. But on the heels of that submission, we now hear that 2 persons, the minority leader in the House of Assembly, Nwankwo, and Peter Abbey, who is representing the Gema State constituency, have both come forward to say, in the interest of stability, peace, and concord in Rivers State, reason should be allowed to prevail. There should be a recourse to dialogue. I think that the 2 gentlemen, have made a very wise intervention. Some of the reports in the media indicate that they are wicked persons, but as members of parliament, they have the right to hold their own opinions, and that the opinion that they have held, in my view, will seem to be, within the province of reason and not aggression. That's one. Number 2 is the point, however, that 2 persons out of the total number of lawmakers saying we think reason should prevail does not matter much. You need 1/3 of the House of Assembly to initiate the process. That already has happened. You need 2/3 to say that the process is valid and that they can go to the next stage. So 2 out of, how many of them are there? About 21, 22 of them in that House of Assembly. May not make any difference. But I salute the courage of Nwankwo and Peter Abbey to express their opinion that the people of Rivers State deserve peace and stability, because the people, their interest is the lowest common denominator in this matter, no matter the preferences of the power mongers involved in the game. Now, on the question of the other question that you raised, the KPMG and the Nigeria Revenue Service meeting. Well, just to raise a number of questions. KPMG is saying that they have observed some inconsistencies, they've observed certain errors dealing with non-resident obligations, tax, forest deductions, taxation of taxation rates and all of that. where was KPMG before now? One is that during the hearings on the taxation reform, there was public hearing. Was KPMG part of that process? Number two is that were they even consulted at all? Being subject area experts, were there subject area experts involved? I know Mr. Taiwo Yedele will say yes. I know Dr. Zach Adideji will say yes. Now the issue is about the gazetted official gazette of the NTA, as those tax laws are otherwise called. And now KPMG comes forward and says, oh, we have observed certain things. The response from Oyedele is that the KPMG, which is a tax audit firm and all that, accounting firm, which should understand the issues, do not understand the policy intent. I'm quoting Oyedele directly. However, I think it's important that both parties, KPMG, now speaking after the fact, and the relevant state authorities are meeting and trying to collaborate. Oyedele, if I remember very well, is saying that what they are talking about are just mainly clerical errors, minor adjustments that do not directly affect the substance of the laws. They've also met with Zach Adideji. However, the point here is the residual point, that a law is a living document. That law is already in operation. It can only be fine-tuned, it can only grow when people point out observations, when they point out issues. So there's nothing, in my view, extraordinary about this. There are people who are even arguing in Nigeria that the law on bigamy, which is a dead law, in Nigeria, should be revisited, so that, the matter can be properly addressed. After all, in Akwa Ibom State, I read the story saying that Governor Umoeno I said that single girls must not follow married men. Mm-hmm. Well, how he intends to implement that, how he determines who is a single girl, who is a married man,
What's your concern?
Is in the province.
What's your concern?
It's in the province of conjecture.
What's your concern?
No, just wait. I'm just giving you examples how laws evolve. Okay, finally,
Tambuwal.
Senator Tambuwal, former governor, two-time governor of Sokoto State, turned 60 on the 10th of January. He decided to mark the occasion by having a colloquium. And the major message that came from him is that Nigeria is in peril and that Nigeria needs urgent attention. His main argument, which is not necessarily partisan, is that there are many issues, afflicting us, problems afflicting us that we need to address. And he said it's a collective responsibility. I don't see a problem with his submission. He said also that the electoral system is in need of reform to put the people, the electorate, at the center of it. He, being an experienced politician, says that, it's not what the electorate wants that ends up as the result. And he should know, having been in politics for a substantial part of his career. And he blames INEC, he blames officials. He talked about electronic transmission in his conversation with Charles Aniagolu of Arise News yesterday. I think you cannot really fault him on the things that he has said. He's talking about how we can make this country better. And that's an unexceptionable argument. However, the APC in Lagos, they've issued a statement saying Tambuwal is this, Tambuwal is that, he's losing relevance and all that. Please, APC Lagos should not behave as if they are planning to take the job of the spokesman of the president. Can they just focus on Lagos? What is their business? But what is established is that Senator Tambuwal remains politically relevant. And we congratulate him on his many achievements. For those who think some people are not newsworthy, this man is particularly newsworthy and is an achiever. And Baba Obasanjo made the point by saying he's humble on top of everything, humility. That's one lesson that I think others can learn from him. And as for the political theater that Lagos APC is talking about, they are the ones creating the political theater, not Tambuwal. They should be well advised in that regard.
All right. Well, before I begin, of course, you know, said in jest, and we like light-hearted moments, but we just, of course, want to clarify the fact that the statements that had been attributed to the Deputy Governor of Akwa Ibom State are, in fact, false. You know, the report emerged from a Facebook post by Obievel Albert Abigo, and they say this bill is, of course, it doesn't exist.
So married men can follow single girls in Akwa Ibom and elsewhere.
They said Akwa Ibom has more serious business to focus on for now. So other than what married men choose
for that
to
clarification, because I know a lot of bachelors and even married men who are already disturbed.
or some maybe who
I was worried about the implementation
of the absolutely. So just of course it was on a lighter note, but just to you know, ensure that our viewers are aware of that debunked report. Now, where do we begin? Let's begin in Rivers State this morning, where I think, you know, everything is pretty clear and straightforward. However, one thing that stuck out to me was the fact that these two lawmakers who've now said that they are withdrawing their support for the impeachment says that this is despite the fact that they still feel that the governor is guilty of gross misconduct. Now, my question is, what happens in this instance where there are 8 allegations, leveled against the governor? Now, those who are involved in the peacemaking process are saying that impeachment is a last resort constitutional remedy. And in this instance, it's being used as a power play, as a way to exert supremacy. But my question is, should Governor Sim Fubara be implicated in any gross misconduct of any nature? Does that mean that he's going to get away scot-free because we're going to blame the power tussle that's happening within Rivers State for anything that he may do? Are we giving him a blank check to misbehave for the remainder of his tenure because everything will play out in the media and in the public space as a power play between himself and Nyesom Wike? So in doing so, I think it's very important for us to ensure that as much as, yes, it is clear there's a power tussle, there's a fallout between Godfather and Godson. However, accountability still needs to hold fort in this instance. We still need to be aware what is happening with the funds of the Rivers State. What is happening with regards to the dissolution of power, the separation of powers? What is happening with regards to the appointment of individuals in that state? Are due processes, the due democratic processes that the Rivers State people deserve, are they being observed? So it's very important for us not to lose focus of the fact that he is still the governor and he should still be held accountable. And if he misbehaves, he shouldn't be allowed to hide behind all the other theatrics that are happening in order to escape being held accountable for any issues that may arise within the management of the state. For the purposes of time, I quickly move on to NRS and KPMG. And again, what really stuck out is the fact that KPMG, who are global specialists in this area, were saying that they didn't quite understand some areas in the tax laws. That in itself is a major red flag. If the experts who deal with these issues around the world are saying that they are struggling to grasp some of the areas in the final version of the laws, then that means that there's room for review to simplify them, to ensure there are no gray areas, no loopholes that will cause problems for us tomorrow. And I think that should be taken in a very good spirit. That ultimately the outcome of this was that we struggle to understand it. And I say that if the experts struggle to understand, what about the layman, you and I? Of course, we always know that the true test of a law is in its implementation and in its practice. And there'll be several questions around this as we continue to engage with the law. But this is something that I think shouldn't be taken lightly and should be engaged with. I can hear the music playing. I finalized with the statements from Senator Tambuwal. I'm going to be a bit of a rebel today. Please don't yank me off air, Director. Just 30 seconds. Now, he's making a point that many of us have made ad nauseum, as Rufai said, which is the fact that subsidy is removed, Where is the social policy framework? Where is the industrial policy framework? Funds were freed, and yes, the argument is that they went to the state governors, but because there's no framework around how we deal with social policies, the governors are also failing to account for how they are translating this extra funds into social welfare or into the public good. Similarly, some governors are saying, well, the federal government is still enjoying over 52% of the budget. So there's enough blame to go around. I close by saying, ultimately, Senator Tambuwal made the point that Nigerian politics is Machiavellian. We make this point often, but what is it? It's the fact that moralistic politics doesn't work here. Only politics of power and strong men. Where does this come from? It comes from the fact that we had a military government successively, and they politicized the use of raw power, and that still trickles down today. And this, I think, is a merit to those who argue that the 1999 Constitution needs to be reviewed because it emanated from a place in Nigeria that was undemocratic.